Vince Offer is easily the most famous infomercial man in history. You probably know him as the ShamWow guy, and that's probably all you know him for. But Vince never wanted to be the ShamWow guy. That was never his goal. He wanted to be a movie star, but he was constantly outcasted by Hollywood. Even when he had it all with ShamWow, he completely lost it all after going down a complete spiral that led to his arrest and at one point even faced bankruptcy, and was also exposed for being a fraud. How did someone with a multi-million-dollar empire just completely lose everything? Let's cut the bullshit and get right into it. Born in 1964, his actual birth name was Ofer Shlomi. As a child, his family then immigrated to Brooklyn, New York. The neighborhood he lived in was very Jewish and Italian. The ruthless, dry humor of the locals helped form Vince's sense of humor, as well as develop his confidence and his drive. He constantly was doing side hustles to try and earn extra money. During the winters, him and his friends would shovel the snow off of driveways. His friends would usually stop after 2 hours, but he would keep going until 10 p.m. Vince was always more of a doer than a learner. School really never did anything for him. From an early age, Vince knew that he was going to be big. Specifically, big in film. He dreamed of being on the big screen and having the whole world laugh at his jokes, and living the celebrity lifestyle. So, at age 17, Vince took a leap of faith by dropping out of high school, packing up his bags, and moving to Los Angeles for new opportunities. He legally changed his name from Ofer Shlomi to Vince Offer so that he didn't sound so foreign. He had no plan, no money, no experience, and no connections, but he had one thing: drive. He applied to 75 restaurants and all of them rejected him. So, he went to the flea markets. Now, growing up, Vince was heavily inspired by Jerry Carroll, the man who starred in the Crazy Eddie commercials. Now, these commercials were everywhere in the 70s and are extremely famous. It featured Jerry, who played the fast-talking, wild persona of Crazy Eddie, who sold all of these electronics at such a low price that you would think that he's crazy.
Get a color TV or a Sony Betamax or a TV video game. Get it now, because Crazy Eddie can't be beat. With prices so low, he's practically giving it all away.
And these are some of the most famous infomercials in history because of just how in your face they were. Even if you had no interest in buying electronics, you couldn't help but find these entertaining. Vince was fascinated by this sales style and applied it to the flea markets, where he sold early versions of the slap chop. Now, this was in the early 90s before he appeared on TV. Now, at first he had trouble selling to pedestrians as he was very timid and shy. He realized that being polite was not going to be enough. He had to get more aggressive and in their face. Vince started to become really good at the flea market. He was a natural. And over the years, he did this as his day job until he was able to find the next big thing. And during the 90s, he started getting into acting and was even able to get his own show on public access television, The Underground Comedy Show, where he starred in some of the skits that he wrote himself. These skits were extremely low budget, very mediocre, and basically got no attention. Except from one person, Tamara Rawat, who was the producer for the hit show Living in Color. This was a very famous skit show from the 90s that had big stars in it like Jim Carrey. Tamara reached out to Vince to write a couple skits for the show. He wrote 10 whole skits in the span of 2 days and sent them all back, but none of them were used. But this gave Vince a sign that maybe the entertainment world was the real path for him. Maybe this was a sign to push this further. And so he continued to hustle the flea markets and sell enough slap chops to fund his next project. After 5 years, he finally had enough money to fund his very first movie, a real movie. Vince decided to use some of those skits that were rejected by In Living Color for his own movie, The Underground Comedy Movie. Vince wanted to make this movie as outrageous as humanly and legally possible. He wanted to completely break the boundaries of what was happening in cinema and felt like he was exactly what the industry needed. The film was a collection of edgy and extremely dirty bits like supermodels taking a dump, a superhero named Dickman who goes around and squirts semen on people, and Vince playing a black guy who shoots a member of the KKK. Yeah, I know. Somehow Vince was able to get the guy from Green Mile to play a gay black virgin, and also somehow got Slash from Guns N' Roses to be in it. Now, the production for this movie was already pretty rocky from the start. It took 3 years to make the movie because of the severe lack of budget. When he ran out of money, Vince had to halt production and then sell more slap chops to get more money for the movie. In total, the entire thing cost $500,000 to make. Now, in the middle of working on this video, I noticed that someone was using my credit card to buy stuff online. I don't know how they got it, but now I'm out $36 because of it. I had to learn the hard way to be more protective of my personal info, otherwise this would not have happened. Now, if it were up to me, I know I'd be able to keep my personal information safe. But it's not always up to us because big companies can't always keep our data safe. Recently, AT&T revealed that all of their customers' calls and text records were exposed in a giant data breach. And it hasn't even been a few months since they admitted that 70 million users' information were posted onto the dark web. The log also contains a record of every single number that every AT&T customer called or texted. So even if you don't use AT&T, if someone texted you who did, then your number was also exposed. So what can you do to protect yourself? Me personally, I use Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura will immediately alert me if my phone number or any personal information has been compromised. And they give me fast fraud alerts if anyone tries to access my bank info or credit card information. Aura does so much more to keep me and my family safe too. I also get things like transaction monitoring, a VPN, antivirus, a password manager, parental controls, and identity theft insurance. I'm not leaving myself or my family vulnerable to data breaches. And if you don't want to either, then go to my link shown right here and get your first 2 weeks free. Also linked below in the description. Thanks, Aura. But before his movie even came out, Vince sued the directors for the other movie, There's Something About Mary, for allegedly stealing 14 scenes from his movie. Even though There's Something About Mary came out in 1998 and his movie came out in 1999. So how did they steal a movie before his even came out? Now, when Vince halted production, he was trying to get an A-list celebrity to star in the movie so that he could really get it some promotion. So he started showing people in Hollywood an early version of the movie to try and gain interest. Vince claims that he gave an early version of the movie to Guy Oseary, who was the manager of Madonna and a good friend of Ben Stiller. Vince claims that Ben told him how much he liked the movie, and then not too long after, There's Something About Mary is in theaters. Now, it's pretty unlikely that not much of this is true. For one, Ben was simply a star of the movie. He didn't have any writing or producing credits, he was the main actor. And when you look at both movies, you can maybe see some similarities, but nothing that really justifies plagiarism. Now, the directors of the movie, the Farley brothers, claims that they never even heard about the movie or even knew who Vince was. The case was dismissed the very next year, and Vince had to pay $66,000 to the attorneys. This also heavily delayed the movie because that's quite a lot of money. In the final cut of the movie, Vince was so petty that in the ending credits, he left a special shout out to the directors of There's Something About Mary to tell them to stop copying his stuff. And when the finally was released in theaters, it racked in a whopping $865. Yes, $865. After years of trying to make connections in Hollywood, tons of production effort, and $500,000 of a budget, Vince only made $865. Not even enough to cover 1 month of rent. And the movie was ripped to shreds by critics. No one found it funny. To say that this movie is terrible is honestly quite a compliment. It's a horrible attempt at trying to be shocking and edgy with all of its extreme content, but it's honestly just embarrassing and cringy to watch. To this day, this movie is considered one of the worst of all time. It's almost impressive, like as if Vince was trying to make the worst movie possible. Now, Vince blamed part of the movie's failure on Anna Nicole Smith, who was actually supposed to star in the film, but she backed out last minute over fear that it would ruin her career. And considering the public already saw her as a gold-digging piece of trash, that says a lot. Vince sued her a year after the movie came out for $4 million, claiming that her backing out on the movie cost the entire production team $100,000. It's also worth noting that he sued her right after she was awarded $450 million from her dead billionaire husband's estate. Pretty coincidental. It's unclear how this case was resolved, but something tells me that he did not win it. The movie's failure caused Vince to file for bankruptcy in 2002. Nearly 40 years old now and spending over half his life in LA, Vince had nothing to show for it. This was easily Vince's rock bottom. He had no money and no opportunities, and had an absolute dog shit of a movie completely staining his reputation. But he still had one thing that no one could take away from him: his drive. Vince was not so ready to give up on this. He may not have been a good writer, director, actor, or really skilled at anything when it comes to making a movie, but he was one hell of a salesman. After all, he did raise the entire movie budget of $500,000 by quite literally selling slap chops at the flea market. So we thought maybe the movie itself wasn't really the failure, it was the lack of advertising for it. Vince was pretty inspired by the Girls Gone Wild advertisements, which promoted the Girls Gone Wild series, and seeing how successful this style was, Vince wanted to immaculate it. So he started running commercials for his movie that ran on Comedy Central from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m.
I'm the one causing the trouble here.
from the writer who brought you the lawsuit.
Yeah,
Give a
that's good.
thumbs up, you know, in the words of Michael Jackson.
Against the writers of There's Something About Mary, now brings you
Oh, not now, honey, not now.
the original. With things you'll never see. Supermodels taking a dump.
Welcome to the What's Up Talk Show.
Unbelievably offensive.
How dumb are you to be on the show, mother?
With Gina Lee Nolan. Armageddon's Michael Clark Duncan.
I'm a virgin, okay?
Slash. And Joey Buttafuoco.
Get him the cookies already. What are you doing? He said he didn't want the cookies. Get the cookies. I'll go get the cookies. Well, I'll go in and get them now.
The underground comedy movie. Guaranteed to offend everyone.
Vince definitely advertised to the right audience because this boosted his DVD sales like crazy, and eventually he sold over 100,000 copies, going from $865 in the box office to then making his money back and then some. Vince clearly had a talent. Vince used the profits not to make another film, but actually to even some scores and sue the Church of Scientology. Oh yeah, this is where it gets weird. Vince has had quite the history with the church. He was a frequent member of the church and had fellow members involved in a slap chop business and even had some of them work on the movie with him. However, the church was not a fan of the material that he was producing. They wanted him to stop making this monstrosity that would completely stain the church's name. So, to try and incentivize him to stop, fellow members of the church who were involved with Vince were instructed to write false reports about him to make him look as bad as possible and ruin his reputation. Essentially, make him look as bad as possible to the public. All of these members did not have a choice in this. One of the people involved in this said they threatened that I would be declared suppressive if I didn't write all that bad stuff I knew on Vince. And being labeled as suppressive in the Church of Scientology is one of the worst things that can happen to you. It essentially means that you are an enemy to Scientology and you are completely excluded from the group and you are disconnected from your friends and your family. It's pretty gruesome. Vince was summoned to the church's court and was found guilty of 23 different charges. Keep in mind, this is not real court, this is the church's court. It's pretty crazy shit. And because of the charges, he was a declare type B, which is essentially a term for a criminal. This essentially exiled Vince out of the church and anybody that he was associated with, which severely sabotaged his business. But since then, Vince has kept pretty quiet about his beliefs and his history with them. It's also hard to determine how true some of this stuff is because he's never really personally talked about it. A lot of Vince's actual relationship with the church is unknown and it seems like he wants to keep it that way. When actress Leia Remini left the church out of fear for her family's safety, Vince praised her decision but also kept his opinion pretty limited. Vince said that she was brave to do so, but also said, without saying too much otherwise, if it wouldn't be you guys following me, it would be something else. I don't see anything. If they leave me alone, I won't say anything because I still want to be around. And that's the last time he's ever really spoken about it. Vince has now settled his beefs, so now he can focus back on his career. Problem was, Vince was kind of back to square one. The poor success of the movie made no one in Hollywood want to work with Vince again, and he was low on cash now. So he went right back to where it all started, the flea markets. The success of his DVD and hustling in the markets made Vince realize that maybe his real path was in the sales business. He was able to literally sell one of the worst movies of all time and did it during limited commercial hours, and fueled the funding completely by selling cheap vegetable tools. So he got the idea, what if he sold something that was more useful and sold it during the day on TV? Vince tried searching for the perfect product that he could sell, something cheap that he could easily upscale that everyone could use. In the flea markets, he came across a cleaning rag that was pretty decent at absorbing liquid, and that's where Vince realized that he struck gold. This was going to change his life. Even though it was just a cheap towel, Vince realized that he could turn it into something much, much more. Everybody needs cleaning products, and with the right sales pitch, Vince realized that he could turn this cheap towel into the next big thing. He visited the factory in Germany that produced them and struck a deal with them. Vince realized that the product needed a name, something clever that really stood out. He was trying to make a play on the word chamois, which was another word for rag. He tried sham it up, but that was too wordy. He then tried sham it, but that wasn't really family friendly enough. But then he thought of ShamWow. It makes you say wow every time. It was perfect. Vince had the product, the name, and the slogan. Now all he needed was the commercial. In the summer of 2007, he would film the legendary commercial that we all know today.
Hi, it's Vince with ShamWow. You'll be saying wow every time you use this towel. It's like a chamois, it's like a towel, it's like a sponge. A regular towel doesn't work wet. This works wet or dry. This is for the house, the car, the boat, the RV. ShamWow holds 20 times its weight in liquid. Look at this. It just does the work. Why do you want to work twice as hard? Doesn't trip. Doesn't make a mess. You wring it out, you wash it in the washing machine. Made in Germany. You know the Germans always make good stuff. You can cut it in half, use one as a bath mat, drain your dishes with the other one, use one as a towel. Olympic divers, they use it as a towel. Look at that, completely dry. Put a wet sweater, roll it up, it dries your sweaters. Here's some cola. Wine, coffee, cola, pet stains. Not only is the damage gonna be on top, there's your mildew. That is gonna smell, see that? The most observant. We're gonna do this in real time. Look at this, put on the spill, turn it over. Without even putting any pressure, 50% of the cola right there. You follow me, camera guy? The other 50%, the color starts to come up. No other towel's gonna do that. It acts like a vacuum. And look at this, virtually dry on the bottom. See what I'm telling you? ShamWow, you'll be saying wow every time.
This was an instant hit. People and critics loved the commercial. His upbeat, quick, and in-your-face style was something that just demanded your attention. Vince made the ShamWow seem like the most useful thing that everybody in their life needed. It was literally just a cheap rag, but he made it look like this magical thing that could clean almost anything in your house, your car, and also be used as a placemat that was also able to absorb this insane amount of liquid. And if you saw this ad as a kid, you probably thought this was the greatest thing ever. Vince finally had a big break. After 25 years of failure, he became an overnight success. The ShamWow made him millions of dollars, and he finally achieved of what he always dreamed of, making it big. The years of grinding, the failures of all his past projects, and all of the rejection, it was worth it. However, Vince's product was subject to lots of criticism. There were lots of customers who complained about the false advertising of the product. Vince claimed that the rag could hold 20 times its weight in liquid, which was just simply not true. When this was revealed, Vince adjusted it to say that it could hold 12 times its weight in liquid, but this was also not true. In reality, it could only hold 10 times its weight at best. And the product wasn't also very durable, with lots of customers complaining that it wore out really quickly. One of the reasons why was probably because it was just so cheap to produce. The ShamWows only costed pennies to make, but Vince would sell his signature pack of 2 large ShamWows and 2 small ones for $19.95. That's around $5 per ShamWow, plus the shipping and handling. Now, in response to the criticism, Vince claimed that the returns on the product were extremely low, but that was because it was very difficult to return. Most people are not willing to go through extreme effort to return a $20 product, so on paper, low returns looks pretty good without context. But regardless, Vince was still making crazy money. And with the success of the ShamWow, he decided to use the exact same formula for another product that he had experience with, the Slap Chop, a handheld device that could easily chop up fruits and vegetables. Super easy and super quick to use. Vince had quite literally over a decade's worth of experience selling this product, so he was ready to put it on TV.
Hi, it's Vince with Slap Chop. You're gonna be in a great mood all day because you're gonna be slapping your troubles away with the Slap Chop. Now look, here's a potato. 1 slap, you got big chunks for stews. 2 slaps, home fries in a second. And look at this, when you add a mushroom, the more you do it, the finer it gets. You don't have to switch any blades. Now, you love salad, you hate making it. You know you hate making salads, that's why you don't have any salad in your diet. Watch this, 1 slap, salad. I love pizza too, but once in a while, get the veggies in. At least throw it on top of the pizza. You're gonna change your eating habits. Soup, coleslaw stuff, you want 5 seconds, 4 or 5 seconds, it's done. This thing, this tuna, looks boring. Stop having a boring tuna, stop having a boring life. Add this tuna, put it here like this. Now you're gonna have a nice tuna salad. Look at this. You're gonna have an exciting life now.
This commercial made Vince skyrocket even more. They just loved his aggressive sales style and his use of double entendres.
You're gonna love my nuts.
This commercial was just as successful as the ShamWow, and the Slap Chop also sold millions. Vince was now 2 for 2 on successful products. And Vince was already starting to dominate the biggest figure in the infomercial business, Billy Mays. Now, Billy was a big competitor of Vince as he was also selling pretty similar products. The Zorbies, which was just like the ShamWow, and the Quick Chop, which was just like the Slap Chop. The products were advertised to be better than what Vince was selling, but they actually were less successful. Reviewers would compare both of the products and say that the ShamWow was better by a mile, but still would not recommend anyone to buy this. It was a crappy towel, but less crappy than what Billy was trying to sell. Billy was not such a big fan of Vince and was not afraid to voice his opinion on it.
Who's the ShamWow guy? He's all over the place now.
He's a one-hit wonder. I had Zorbies for a year, and he knocked me off.
But when Vince was asked about Billy, Vince was very quick to dismiss that he was not better than him at all. And with the face recognized all across America, Vince was finally able to get his foot right back into the film industry, just like he always wanted. Eminem himself called up Vince to do his signature infomercial style for his new album Recovery. That same year, he appeared as himself in the Adam Sandler hit comedy movie Jack and Jill. Granted, he was referred to as the ShamWow guy, but this was still a really big step. Vince was now in an official movie with A-list celebrities like he always dreamed of. This could really open the doors for his future in film. And it also helped with the fact that bits of his commercials were used in Iron Man 3 and in Breaking Bad. Vince was on top of the world and had all the money that he could think of. But just 2 years after his burst of success, it all started to go downhill. With all the money and the attention coming in, Vince became a huge partier, drinking excessively on day's end. In 2009, Vince was arrested after a physical dispute with a prostitute in Miami. After a 12-hour drinking binge, he brought the girl to his room to do you know what. At one point, she bit his tongue and refused to let go, which led Vince to punching her right in the face pretty badly. And this left her face pretty badly fractured. Vince and the girl were arrested and his bloody mugshot was released to the public. However, neither of them were charged in the incident. It was also during this time that Vince was heavily stalking and harassing one of his employees. It was in 2011 that she finally came forward and sued him in court. She claimed that Vince forced him to constantly be on his beck and call, made sexual advances, and offered to buy her eggs. Allegedly, he even went so far as to offer her $20,000 and a 1-month paid vacation for her parents to travel the world in exchange for her eggs. And when she refused the offer, he fired her. Only 2 years of being rich and famous, and Vince was already down a path of destruction. His good name was being dragged across the news, and it seemed like the fame and money gone to his head. The controversy forced him to take a break from TV and the spotlight for quite a while. Vince took the time and realized that he needed to get his shit together. He stopped partying, he kept his nose clean, and focused back on the business. When he made a comeback, he claimed that the incident actually saved his life. In 2012, he made a comeback to the game with another product to launch across America, the Shticky. Now, the Shticky was a lint roller that could clean up pet hair, dirt, and other small debris. This was Vince's big return from the spotlight after years away, so this commercial had to be top quality and more outrageous.
Hey, it's Vince Offa here with my new product called the Shticky. You're gonna clean your home in a quickie when you use your Shticky. Now here's the deal. It's a reusable lint roller and more. For furniture, food particles in the cabinets, debris on the stairs, and even use it in the car. And ladies, you always wanted to stick it to your husband. Now you can. Works on all fabrics, from wool to velvet. Problem with that shedding pussy? Pick up cat hairs from clothes. Or use Shticky on the leftover dog hairs on the sofa. Or even Shticky your pets before they shed.
This time he used much more dirtier jokes and had a much bigger budget. And this product was pretty successful and sold a lot, but not nearly as much as the other ones he sold. And just like his last ones, there was also lots of criticism for this one as well. Many customers felt that it was just simply a lower quality version of a traditional lint roller and wasn't nearly as effective as advertised. Again, just like his other products. But with all the money and the opportunities that Vince had, he decided that he wanted to get back into the film industry once again. And what better way to do that than by making a sequel to his already terrible failure of a picture, the Inappropriate Comedy movie. This was just like Vince's first movie, but with bigger budget and bigger stars. It was a collection of skits and featured stars like Lindsay Lohan, Adrian Brody, Rob Schneider, and even Theo Von way before his career took off. Now, how he got some of these people, I have no idea. Adrian Brody was quite literally an Oscar-winning actor, so he didn't really need to do crap like this. Lindsay Lohan was still on probation, and in in her scene, you can quite literally see her alcohol detecting ankle monitor. And just like the first movie, Vince's goal was to make this movie as edgy and dirty and outrageous as humanly and legally possible. Like Lindsay Lohan recreating the famous Marilyn Monroe scene while shooting paparazzi while Vince was secretly filming her underground. Or a parody of Jackass called Blackass, which was literally just black people trying to escape the police. I'm not kidding, that's literally what it is. Or people sparring with giant prosthetic dicks. You get the point. But unlike the first movie, Vince took a step back from acting and focused more on the directing and writing role. Vince was dead sure that this would be his big hit and he would finally get taken seriously by Hollywood and would no longer just be the ShamWow guy. He put $6 million into the budget for this movie, sparing no expense. This was gonna be his hit, except it wasn't. It flopped horribly and only made $228,000 in the box office. The average theater that showed this movie only made $625 in total. This was a way bigger financial loss than the first movie because of how much money he lost from it, and the reviews were not holding back either. Now, while it wasn't as terrible as the first movie, it was still pretty much dog shit. When it came out, it got a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Lindsay Lohan's acting was so atrocious that she quite literally got nominated for Worst Supporting Actress at the Golden Raspberry Awards, but lost it to Kim Kardashian for her role in Temptation: Confessions of a Marriage Counselor. This movie was a failure, but not for everybody actually. The only successful series to come out of this was The Amazing Racist. This was a recurring segment in the movie where Ari Shaffir would play a racist person and go around and be, well, racist to people.
Hi, I'm Ari Shaffir, and I am the Amazing Racist. Why don't you guys join me today as we go down to the black neighborhood, Los Angeles. Man, it's gonna be a fun day today, I'll tell you what.
What power? What power? Come on now, what power? Wake up, white
people. Sorry, boy. Man, it's hotter in Africa out there.
Vince reposted some of the skits for The Amazing Racist on YouTube and they did millions of views. Ari Shaffir was basically a nobody at the time that this happened, and this really accelerated his career and he started making appearances on Joe Rogan. Although, lots of people did not really find these skits in good taste despite their popularity. It wasn't necessarily the race topics, it was more of the fact that the jokes and the delivery were so dry. It's the kind of thing that 13-year-olds who just found out about race jokes would find funny. But overall, this movie was still a huge loss. Vince was out over $5 million. There's no way Hollywood would give him another chance after not one, but two complete disasters. So with the little options that Vince had left, Vince decided to go back to doing what he did best, selling crap on TV. Vince came back with his latest cleaning product, the Invincible, the ultimate cleaning spray. This one didn't really do so well, and there's a reason why you probably never heard of it. This was easily Vince's least successful product to date. It still sold decently well, but it was a huge decrease in everything he sold before. It just simply could not compete with all of the other brands that were being sold on the market. And just like all of his other products, it didn't work nearly as well as advertised. It was also clear that Vince did not have the same appeal that he had back in the day. And this would be the last product that he himself did infomercials for. Now, he did appear in other commercials not necessarily associated with his company like Quick Grass and the Slap Chop. These were much more forgettable. And 2015 was the last time that Vince would be selling crap on TV. He started focusing more on his personal life. He met a girl and got married, and together they had a daughter, but they divorced 4 years later and she got majority custody. And other than that, Vince has been pretty silent from the public. No arrests, no drama, no commercials. He returned for a brief time in 2020 to sell ShamWow masks, but that was really it. So, where is Vince now? Well, the answer may surprise you. After nearly 10 years of being away from the spotlight, Vince decided that it was time to return with a podcast. But not just any podcast. A podcast that will change everything.
Hey, it's Vince Offer. I help revolutionize how you watched TV commercials.
Hey, Vince! You're gonna love my nuts. Watch this.
Problem with that shedding pussy? Pick up cat hairs from clothes. Now I'm gonna do the same thing with my new show called The ShamWow Guy Show. And the first thing I'm gonna talk about is how I was canceled before cancel culture was a thing. The Hollywood elites banned my movie, probably because they played an Italian guy selling a meat sauce.
We eliminate the beef in the sauce For fetuses. Provisions from the hospital will guarantee us mutilated fetuses.
We're a kosher restaurant.
Or maybe I was banned for the other scene where I played a black guy.
JJ Cool J. JJK Cool. What's up?
Fuck, was that the guy from ShamWow?
How dumb are you to be on the show, motherfucker?
Yeah, I killed a KKK member, so we're all good, right? I mean, even BLACA, Black Lives Association Kingdom of America, has given me the N-word pass. Don't worry, America, I'm only gonna use it when I want to intimidate some white guys. We're pushing it because comedy is all about taking risks, and it gives us the passes to do whatever the fuck we want. That's why you gotta subscribe and hit that notification button before it's too late.
That's right, Vince was getting back at all the people who dared to cancel him back in the day. I mean, a comedian ranting about cancel culture on a podcast? Pfft, never heard about that before. And on this podcast, Vince had some pretty strong opinions, specifically about the LGBTQ. In almost every single episode, Vince somehow got into the topic of the LGBTQ brainwashing children. Like literally almost every single episode. The second episode of the podcast was specifically meant for Vince to talk about his rise into the ShamWow business, but somehow it turned into a giant rant about the LGBTQ.
The woke cannot go up to kids and say, here's homosexual. They can't go up to 7-year-olds, talk about homosexuality. But they can go up to them and talk about transgender.
In fact, he even has an entire episode where he discovers LGBTQ's hidden agenda, which is almost 40 minutes long.
Most of these kids who are like considering different sexes, they're mostly gay. Why mutilate them?
Yeah, they're confused. They're
confused. Just chill out.
They don't know what's going on. Look,
LGBTQ, please get the P out of the LGBTQ. Please get your pedophiles out. Expose the pedophiles, get them out, kick them out, and that's it. And then we'll have a better life. Okay?
It's all about the fetuses in the source. Come on, you know what it is, bro.
This is like basically 80% of the podcast. Almost every single conversation in the show is Vince complaining about Hollywood screwed him over making a shitty movie or about the LGBTQ brainwashing the kids. Originally, these were posted on YouTube, but Vince thought these were just too damn good that he decided to put them on Patreon, where people would pay to see his exclusive content. For $10 a month, you could get access to all the extremely uncensored content and hilarious skits. And for $25, you could get the complete package deal where you even get a shout out at the end of the podcast. And his Patreon so far has a whopping four members. That's barely even like $40 a month that he's bringing in from this thing, so he's definitely losing money. But this does reflect to see just how far Vince really has gone. He's still desperately trying to sell ShamWow products like the ShamPow, which is like a giant ShamWow for your car, and the ShamWow hoodie, which is literally just a hoodie made out of ShamWow in case you feel like being a human towel for a day. Vince's offer was a man recognized all across America, even though America did not know his name. He came to Los Angeles to be a star, and become a star he did. He completely changed the way the commercials were made and raised the stakes for being a salesman. His products were cheap and useless, but he was entertaining. If you're able to sell garbage to a garbage man, you have skills. Vince had the drive, but what held him back was his lack of authenticity. He always tried shady maneuvers to get what he wanted and decepted people by making crap look like quality. Imagine how far he would have gone if he sold something that was genuinely useful and helpful to people. Perhaps he'd still be famous and doing something meaningful rather than complaining about cancel culture on a podcast.